ASEAN achieves its summit goals with a strong unity and cooperation. United Nations slams US-backed Gaza aid effort. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Prime Minister Dato' Seri Anwar Ibrahim said ASEAN achieved the goals set for the 46th ASEAN Summit and related summits, crediting the outcome to the strong spirit of unity and the unwavering support of all regional leaders. Reflecting on the engagements throughout the summit, he said Malaysia's chairmanship had enabled deeper discussions with ASEAN external partners, particularly the Gulf Cooperation Council GCC and China.
Dalam banyak hal. Kemudian dengan GCC dan negara Teluk ini walaupun pengalaman baru kerana pertemuan pertama 2 tahun yang lalu di Riyadh itu lebih dalam arti kata permulaan, pengenalan dan persetujuan secara umum, tapi kali ini ada perbincangan yang lebih teliti dan substantif.
On ASEAN's dialogue with China, Dato' Seri Anwar noted that the presence of Chinese Premier Li Qiang allowed both sides to focus on specific areas of cooperation. Speaking at a press conference at the close of this summit, the Prime Minister said the summit's outcomes reflect ASEAN's renewed commitment to remain united and proactive amid rising global uncertainties. While acknowledging that not all issues can be resolved immediately, he stressed that there is now real and meaningful positive engagement among member states. On a related note, the Prime Minister is confident that ASEAN will deliver tangible outcomes in the next ASEAN Summit slated to be held in October. He said his confidence was based on unprecedented progress in discussions and a renewed sense of commitment shown among member states during the 46th ASEAN Summit and related summits, which concluded yesterday. According to Dato' Seri Anwar, most of the work usually reserved for the next summit had already been undertaken, allowing the region to move forward with greater clarity and purpose.
It's quite unprecedented. Things that normally would be deliberated or discussed in October has been done now, and we are moving forward. That, I think, to my mind, is a major change.
Reflecting on ASEAN's current cohesiveness and inclusivity momentum, Dato' Seri Anwar remarked that the unity and determination shown in recent years were unlike anything he had witnessed before. Meanwhile, Dato' Seri Anwar said the Southeast Asian economies have expressed a shared desire to unlock the region's economic potential by leaving no stone left unturned in tapping to the fullest the opportunity in both intra and external trade. He said the benefits from increased trade must accrue to all ASEAN citizens. Declaring that ASEAN means business, the Premier said efforts will be galvanized by its 10-member economies to form linkages with themselves and the world at large, including regions like the European Union and oil-rich West Asia countries.
We must take whatever is necessary. FTAs, of course, GCC, FTA with EU, economic, intra-ASEAN trade, everybody admit something more to be done, more concrete.
The region's joint economic potential was relatively large, as ASEAN's total trade improved significantly to $3.8 trillion last year from $2.3 trillion in 2015, but intra-ASEAN trade only increased to $0.8 trillion from $0.5 trillion during the period. In a related development, Dato' Sri Anwar said, business communities, corporate leaders and industry captains across ASEAN, GCC countries and China should seize the momentum created by the successful conclusion of high-level deliberations at the ASEAN GCC China Summit.
We have given our support, policies, there's clarity of policies. Now you need to ensure that we benefit from this clear, resounding position of the political leadership and clarity of economic policies. So I look forward to this Fortune ASEAN GCC China Economic Summit because we want to see results, and it is your duty now to act and ensure that our countries benefit from one another.
Speaking at the inauguration of ASEAN GCC China Economic Forum, the Prime Minister described the ASEAN GCC China Summit outcomes as a testimony to Malaysia's and ASEAN's position of centrality, effective engagement and strong commitment to economic fundamentals. He noted that ASEAN leaders had shown vision and resolve in addressing and overcoming even the most sensitive issues during the summit, reaffirming ASEAN's independence, unity and strategic relevance. In another development, the Prime Minister said consensus among ASEAN leaders has significantly supported ongoing efforts to resolve the Myanmar crisis, which he described as major progress with both sides now engaged in lower-level consultations.
Even on the issue of Myanmar, the consensus is to continue to engage, and now we have gone to a stage where both parties are now in consultation, although at the lower key level, and to just focus on prolonged ceasefire or expanded ceasefire, then or extended ceasefire, then humanitarian assistance, and then proceeding with that, the initial discussion, but subjected to or confined to the broad parameters under the 5-point consensus.
In a chairman's statement issued at the conclusion of the 46th ASEAN Summit, ASEAN leaders stressed that the 5-point consensus remains the regional grouping's central reference in guiding efforts towards restoring peace and stability in Myanmar, which has been plagued by conflict since the military seized power in 2021. ASEAN also denounced the continued violence perpetrated against civilians and public facilities in Myanmar, calling on all actors to exercise restraint and ensure the protection of non-combatants and essential infrastructure. ASEAN member states have expressed a grave concern over the continued war in Gaza and West Asia. This is according to the chairman's statement issued following the conclusion of the 46th ASEAN Summit. Highlighting the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, the leaders of the regional bloc strongly condemned all attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure, which have resulted in immense number of casualties, particularly innocent women and children. They called on all parties to protect civilians and adhere to international law, including international humanitarian and human rights law, as well as the provisional orders of the International Court of Justice in 2024. It also commended the efforts of ASEAN member states in delivering humanitarian assistance and called on all ASEAN members and external partners to continue facilitating such aid. Additionally, ASEAN affirmed their support for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees and emphasized the need for full resumption of unimpeded, rapid, safe and sustained humanitarian access, including through expanded capacity at border crossings and by sea. Thousands of Palestinians rushed into a new aid distribution center run by a US-backed group in southern Gaza, leading to chaotic scenes as Israel implemented a new distribution system. The incident in Rafah came days after the partial easing of a total aid blockade on the territory that Israel imposed on 2nd March, leading to severe shortages of food and medicine. According to the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation GHF, normal operations resumed following the incident. A displaced Gazan, Ayman Abu Zaid, said he was standing in line at the center when suddenly a large number of people started pushing and entering randomly. At one point, he said the Israeli forces started shooting and people began to scatter, but some still kept trying to take the aid despite the danger. Hamas's government media office said Israel's new efforts to distribute aid in Gaza had failed miserably. The failure occurred after thousands of hungry people who have been besieged by the occupation and deprived of food and medicine for about 90 days rushed towards the areas in a tragic and painful scene. A spokesman for UN Chief Antonio Guterres called the incident heartbreaking, adding that the EU and its partners have a detailed, principled, operationally sound plan supported by member states to get aid to a desperate population. Still ahead, a deadly explosion at China's chemical plant kills at least 5. US President Donald Trump has warned Vladimir Putin that he was playing with fire, taking a fresh jab at his Russian counterpart as Washington weighs new sanctions against Moscow over the Ukraine war. Trump's latest broadside showed his frustration with stalled ceasefire talks. Diplomatic efforts to end the war have intensified in recent weeks, but Putin has been accused of stalling peace talks. Trump said Putin is playing with fire, adding that the Kremlin leader does not realize that lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. Trump did not specify what the really bad things were. However, the US president previously raised the possibility of imposing more sanctions on Russia in response to the ongoing attacks on Ukraine. Joe Biden, Trump's Democratic predecessor, imposed sweeping sanctions after Russia's invasion. Trump has so far avoided what he says could be devastating sanctions on the Russian banks. But Trump's recent rebuke remarked a sharp change from his previous attitude towards Putin, of whom he often speaks with admiration. The Russian Navy began naval exercises in the Baltic Sea, involving more than 20 ships, about 3,000 troops, nearly 25 aircraft and helicopters, and around 70 pieces of military equipment. During the drills, live fire exercises will target enemy sea-air threats, including unmanned surface drones. Among the vessels taking part in the drills are frigates, corvettes, tankers, tugboats, and a variety of support ships. The Navy said that vessels from the Baltic and Northern fleets based in the Kaliningrad enclave and in St. Petersburg, respectively, are participating. Forces from the Moscow and Leningrad military districts, along with the aerospace forces, have also been mobilized. Images released by the Baltic Fleet showed ships, bombers and fighter jets navigating the sea, which has become a scene of heightened tensions in recent weeks between Russia and NATO countries. On Monday, Kremlin advisor Nikolai Patrushev accused the West of creating military tension in the Baltic and planning to block the passage of the Russian vessel through international straits. Last week, the Kremlin stated that Russia will defend the navigation of its vessel by all means at its disposal. Ministers from European Union countries approved the creation of a €150 billion arms fund, the bloc's first large-scale defence investment programme at the EU level. The Council of the EU said the fund will be channeled through the new Security Action for Europe SAFE borrowing scheme, which offers competitively priced long maturity loans to member states that chose to invest in defence production via joint procurement of priority capabilities. Finalised by member states earlier this month, The text received final approval at a meeting of Europe ministers in Brussels, with 26 countries voting for and 1 abstention. Hungary was the only EU country to abstain. The European Commission, the EU's executive arm, proposed the fund in March as an essential part of its Rearm Europe plan or Readiness 2030 package, which aims to use over 800 billion euros in defence, spending to bolster European security and defence cooperation. Shattered glass from windows blown apart by an explosion at a chemical plant in China's eastern Shandong province littered the roadside for more than 1 kilometre. The blast killed at least 5 people. The explosion happened just before noon yesterday at a facility operated by Shandong Youdao Chemical, sending plumes of orange and black smoke into the sky. According to the state-run Xinhua news agency, at least 5 people were killed, 19 injured and 6 more remain missing. Local officials have not yet released the results of unspecified tests carried out at the site. The streets leading up to the smouldering ruins were deserted except for emergency teams. Shandong Youdao Chemical was established in August 2019 in the Gaomi Renhei Chemical Park. The plant develops and produces chemical components for use in pesticides and pharmaceuticals, employing more than 300 people on a site of more than 47 hectares. The Saudi Arabian government announced that the country has received more than 1 million pilgrims from various countries around the world this year. Saudi Arabia's Minister of Hajj and Umrah, Dr. Taufik Al-Rabiah, stated that 53% of the arriving pilgrims are men, while the remaining 47% are women. The General Directorate of Passport also announced that a total of 1,003,447 Hajj pilgrims from abroad have arrived in Saudi Arabia through various air, land and sea entry points as of last Sunday. According to Dr. Taufik, 94% of the pilgrims arrived by air, 4.83% via land entry points, and approximately 0.5% by sea. He added that 249,400 pilgrims have arrived through the Makkah Route initiative. In addition, Dr. Taufik also stated that the Hajj conference and exhibition have helped with the documentation of agreements and contracts between companies through the Nusuk platform in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the purpose of visa issuance. One of the 3 Argentine judges presiding in the trial of 7 members of Diego Maradona's medical team charged with negligent homicide in the soccer star's 2020 death stepped down from the case amid accusations of ethical breaches, leaving the future of the proceedings uncertain. Judge Julita McIntyre stood down from the case after a video surfaced in recent days showing her apparently being interviewed by a camera crew as part of a documentary in the corridors of the Buenos Aires courthouse and in her office. Court rules forbid such interviews involving a judge mid-trial. The next steps in the trial remain unclear. According to the lawyer for Maradona's daughters, Dalma and Janina, Fernando Bulando, the trial could resume later this year with a new judge appointed to join the case's remaining 2. Maradona, considered one of the greatest players of all time, died at home in Buenos Aires in November 2020 from heart failure at the age of 60 while recovering from surgery to remove a blood clot experienced days earlier. His death prompted an outpouring of grief and finger-pointing in Argentina over who was to blame after Maradona's years-long battle with addiction and ill health. SpaceX mission control lost contact with the upper stage of the Starship, the most powerful rocket ever built, as it leaked fuel, spun out of control and made an uncontrolled re-entry through Earth's atmosphere, likely disintegrating over the Indian Ocean. The two-stage spacecraft consisting of the Starship vessel mounted atop a towering SpaceX Super Heavy rocket booster blasted off at about 7:36 p.m. local time from the company's Starbase launch site. SpaceX controllers lost contact with the booster during its descent before it presumably plunged into the sea instead of making the controlled splashdown the company planned. The upper stage Starship vehicle continued to climb to space, reaching its planned suborbital trajectory about 9 minutes into the flight. In one test flight mishap, Starship's payload doors failed to open in order to release a group of simulated satellites. Plans called for Starship to complete its experimental flight of less than 90 minutes with a controlled descent and splashdown in the Indian Ocean. But about 30 minutes after the launch, SpaceX says its flight team had lost attitude control over Starship, leaving the vehicle in a spin as it continued to head for atmospheric re-entry. Next up in sports, the two Malaysian mixed doubles pairs reached Singapore Open second round. We begin our sports segment with smashing news in badminton. Malaysia's professional mixed doubles pair Goh Soon Huat, Siobhan Lai Jamie lived up to expectations by advancing to the second round of the Singapore Open 2025 Badminton Championships. The top seeds of the tournament defeated Ukrainian pair Oleksiy Titov and Yevgenia Kantemir 21-11, 21-8 in 21 minutes at the Singapore Indoor Stadium. Awaiting the husband and wife pair will be China's Feng Yanji and Wei Yaxin. Meanwhile, national mixed doubles pair Chen Tangji and Teo Yi Wei also got their Singapore Open Badminton Championship off to a winning start when they eased to a 21-18, 21-15 victory over Americans Presley Smith and Jenny Guy. While number 4 Tangji Yi Wei, who resumed their partnership after a temporary split, needed just 31 minutes to see off the challenge of the world's number 42 ranked Americans at the Singapore Indoor Stadium. The Malaysians will take on Taiwan's Yi Hongwei and Nicole Gonzalez Chan in the second round. Moving on to football, Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim insists the Red Devils are treating their post-season match against the ASEAN All-Stars with full seriousness as both teams gear up for the clash in the Maybank Challenge Cup at the National Stadium Bukit Jalil tonight. The 40-year-old Portuguese tactician who took over the reins at Old Trafford earlier this season stressed that every match involving United carries weight regardless of the setting or opposition.
We have a lot to do. Like you saw this season, we have to improve the team. If there is any game to be played, we are going to use it to improve the team. We have almost all the squad here. Some of the players have, for example, Masraoui had an injury yesterday, on Sunday. But the rest are here. But we also have young kids that have to understand what it means to play for Manchester United. So it's an important moment for us to play this game.
Amorim also expressed appreciation for the warm reception the team received in Malaysia, noting the unwavering support of United fans despite a difficult season. The last time United played in Malaysia was during the 2009 pre-season tour. Meanwhile, the ASEAN All-Stars are eyeing an upset when they take on English giant Manchester United in a Maybank Challenge Cup match. ASEAN All-Stars head coach Kim Sang-sik admitted that time constraints pose the biggest challenge in building team chemistry as the squad has only one training sessions together. However, Kim, who is also the Vietnam national team head coach, said all players continued to show strong commitment ahead of the clash.
많은 선수들이 다른 나라에서 왔지만 많은 좀 하루 훈련을 하면서 우리 선수들의 컨디션이 좋아서 또 강하게 싸울 수 있는 자신감이 생겼다고 좋은 경기할 수 있을 거라고 기대됩니다.
The ASEAN All-Stars squad will feature a mix of experienced and young players, including local representatives such as Muhammad Azam Azmi Murad, Muhammad Adib Abdul Raub and Muhammad Haziq Nazli. Barcelona's teenager star Lamine Yamal signed a new contract until 2031 with the Catalan Giants after a spectacular season. The 17-year-old winger is already one of the club's key players and helped them land a domestic treble of La Liga, the Copa del Rey and the Spanish Super Cup. The Catalan club in a statement said Barcelona and Lamine Yamal have reached a deal to extend his contract to 30th June 2031. It noted that Yamal's renewal is a demonstration of the solidity of Barca's project. Spanish media reported the new deal makes him one of Barcelona's best paid players. Yamal, who turns 18 in July, follows teammate Raphinha and coach Hansi Flick in signing contract extensions in the last few days. Spanish media reported his contract includes various bonuses for different achievements, including winning the Ballon d'Or as well as a significant pay rise. After triumphing at Euro 2024, the Spain last summer, Yamal scored 18 goals and provided 25 assists in 55 matches across all competitions during a sensational campaign. Operating on the right flank and prodigious dribbler, Yamal's skill and speed contributed greatly to Barca netting 102 league goals this season as they reclaimed the crown for rivals Real Madrid. In tennis, Novak Djokovic braved strong winds and light rain, but found little resistance from American Mackenzie McDonald, cruising into the French Open second round to start his bid for a record 25th Grand Slam crown. The six-seed Serbian, fresh from his title win in Geneva last week, pummeled McDonald into submission with a dominant 6-3, 6-3, 6-3 win on the same court he claimed singles gold at the Paris Olympic last year. Djokovic, who looks to have found his form after splitting with coach Andy Murray a few weeks ago, broke the American at 2-all and after a 10-minute interruption due to a wind and rain, raced into a 5-2 lead. He was unfazed by another interruption to close the roof over the Philippe Chatrier court, wrapping up the first set on his serve. Another break at the start of the second set put the 38-year-old firmly in a driving seat, leaving the 98th-ranked American with a mountain to climb. Djokovic was equally dominant in the third set, with another early break, sealing the win on his first match point when McDonald sank a backhand return into the net. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, ASEAN achieves the summit goals with strong unity and cooperation. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Shuhaida Arifin from River to the Sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.